Hi, in this video, I'm going to go through a couple of questions that you posted online with regard to App Inventor. The first question was from Kirat that she still had problem with the emulator. Now, hopefully the problem is gone, but if it hasn't, first of all, it's going to be a little bit hard to somehow diagnose the problem in a distance instead of having uh, can work with the computer. So my suggestion is, if the emulator is not working, the best solution, which is better than the emulator, is to have an Android device or Android cell. If you have that one, is much better. If you don't have that one and the emulator is not working, the best thing you can do is to go online, go on Google and search for something like App Inventor emulator not working, which is here. Now you will see the result of the search. For instance, here it says help with problems connecting the emulator, which is from App Inventor MIT Education. Or you can go online and watch a couple of YouTube videos. Hopefully that's going to solve the problem. But again, the best solution is an Android device, like a cell phone, like a tablet. Now, the second question was about the program that you were supposed to write about adding the digit of a number. And somebody asked me, what exactly is a list? To explain it, let me just refresh your memory. In writing the program in App Inventor, or when you were doing your algorithm, we talked about variables. We said that the variable can have an integer. Let's say the variable name is x. Okay, let's say it's -10. This means that the memory location which is pointed by the variable x is going to have the value -10. You can also have a variable, let's say call it s, which can have a string. Remember, a string, usually we represent string with double quotation mark. Let's say the string has the value Dora. This means the memory location pointed by S is going to have the value Dora. There is another type of data which can be used in programming, which is called list, or usually instead of list is called array. This type of variables, let's call it A. Instead of having a single value, it's going to have a list of values, meaning, for instance, A can have values like 1, 6, -10.8, 4, 3. This means that A, which has the address or the memory location, is going to have a series of values right after each other with the values of 1, then the next memory location has a value of -10.8, then the next one is -10.8, then the next one is 4, the next one is 3, and so forth. In your list, usually, always, you have a length. The length of this list is going to be 5 because it has 5 elements: 1, 6, -10.8, 4, 3. And you can access every value here by using a subscript. For instance, if I want to see what is the first element in my array, I'm going to represent it in one programming language, something like 0. The first element of a list or an array is always 0, and the last one is length minus 1. The length, remember, here is 5, so length minus 1 is going to be 4. A 5 minus 1, which is the same as A4, is going to have the value 3. Now, this is a very, very basic overview of a list. Again, list is the same as array. So if you want to learn more about lists, go online and search for arrays. How do you spell array? This is how you spell an array, and read about it. Now, with regard to the problem that you had, which was writing a program to ask the user for a number and then return the sum, this is how we are going to do it. First, let's very fast. I'm going to have a layout, a horizontal layout here. Now I'm going to make it, to cover the whole screen width-wise. So I'm going to make width to be fill parent. Then I'm going to drag and drop a label here. Then I'm going to type the text inside the label. I'm going to say enter a number. Then I'm going to have a text box in front of it, so I'm going to go and drag and drop the text box here. Now the last thing I need is a button. Now if you recall, in all these videos, we name these variables that we are going to use in the programming part. I'm not going to use enter a number label in the programming, but I use the text box to get the content. So for the text box here, I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it, say, number, and then usually we put something which represents what exactly the variable is. I put a txt, means text box, and then OK. You see the name is changed. For the button, I'm going to rename it as submit. So the name of the button is changed to submit. The other thing I need is a notifier. So I'm going to drag and drop a notifier on the screen. Again, this is invisible component of the app. Now the text on the button has to be changed to submit. I think I've done everything properly here except the title of the screen. The title of the screen, if you click outside on the cell phone, the image, I can go and change the title down here to, let's say, sum of numbers. So the way that the app works is that the user enters a couple of numbers here, separated with comma. So we are going to start our programming part. We go to blocks. Now we have to keep track of the sum. So I'm going to create a new variable here, and I'm going to call it sum. Initially it's 0. When the button is clicked, the button is the submit one here. So I click on submit, and I drag and drop, when submit.click do. Okay, what exactly I want to do, whenever the user clicks submit, I want to initialize sum to be 0. So I'm going to go to variables, bring a set down, and then make it global sum, and I want to make it equal to 0. Now I want to go through every number separated with comma. So this means that I need a for loop. There are a couple of versions of for loop. This one, if I know the beginning and end index of the loop. This one is for every item in the list, and this is the one that I'm interested. So I'm going to take this one, and my list is the split of the content of the text box. So to split a string, I use the text, and then I'm going to go and split it. Now the text is the number text box, so it's number text, and I'm going to drag and drop the text, and then I'm going to make this guy the content, so number text.text, and split it at what character. I want the character to be comma, so I put comma here. Now this means that if I have an example like, let's say 5 comma 1 comma -1 comma 3, when the split is done on the variable, I'm going to get the first item 5, the second item 1, the next item -1, and the next one is 3. So the item is that number. And then I'm going to update sum. So I'm going to go to the variables, and I'm going to set the value of sum to be the addition of the previous sum. So I'm going to go to sum, get global sum, and I'm going to add it to the item. So again, initially sum is 0, then I'm going to split the value entered by the user at the character comma. Then for every integer or number, I'm going to add it to the value of sum, which is initially 0. And then at the end, when I'm done with this loop, I'm going to use my notifier, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to use show message dialog. That message is going to be the value of sum. So I'm going to duplicate this one, and then I'm going to get the sum. The text, the title is going to be sum of numbers, and the text on the button, I just want to say OK. This was the example about adding the numbers. Now we can test it by going to our emulator. This is the display at the moment. The only thing we forgot to do is hint for text box here. To get rid of this one, go back to your design and select the text box. When it says the hint here, just erase this one. Now let's go back to the emulator. Now you can see the same screen, but this time the hint is gone. Now let's just test it very briefly. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 3 numbers. You can see the sum is 3 plus 2 is 5 plus 1 is 6. If I click submit, you can see the sum is 6.